spiritual teacher, motivational speaker who inspires growth and positive change. She has published two books. The first one is called The Joy of Ritual, and the other one is The Joy of Family Rituals, which I personally have and have used that are just fabulous, especially in the times we're in now. Um, she uniquely blends ancient spiritual rituals, psychology, emotional intelligence, and strategic communication skills. And Barbara supports individuals, organizations, and corporations in a powerful yet practical way. And what I love is that Barbara actually left her corporate career to do this work. And she was also a former television and fashion executive, and shares her wisdom through the decades of global studies with gurus, spiritual masters, and her own dedicated practice. So, Barbara, welcome. So good to have you here today. And what would you like to tell us about yourself beyond what I just shared?
Well, thank you, thank you. I mean, it's funny when you were first talking about, um, this is a group where you know you're not just crazy. I love that you said that, Judy. Thank you. I have been working in a combination of spirituality and, kind of business for 30 years or more than that. And as the years have gone on, I've come more and more and more out of the closet, so to speak. And basically, to me, my means that has the most juice for me is ritual. I've studied rituals, I've traveled around the world, I'm still learning, and maybe at the end of this, if somebody has rituals from their culture that I don't know, I would love to know about. But I'm finding more and more people are open to the idea of giving meaning to things. To me, ritual comes from the Indo-European word, which means to fit together. And this community is about how do we fit together. So it gives you the structure that allows you to move into the different transitions in your life, to be part of something bigger, and to also honor wherever you are. And I'm finding that some people are doing that right now, and a lot of people are not. And that's part of the issue right now, why rituals are so important, because we don't have the luxury anymore to just say dive into going to church on Sunday, or to go to, a big group that you're used to being with, to hug people, to have, all of these occasions where you get nourished. My chiropractor's a Sufi, and he was telling me, as we're coming up to Ramadan, that in the pre-pandemic days, they would fast all day before, I think it's an hour before sunrise. And then around 8 o'clock, 8:15, they'd all meet at the mosque and they'd have a potluck dinner and they would be chanting and connecting. And you can't do that anymore. So that's one example. The other, like I'm sure you're all finding, are personal rituals. How do you separate working at home from your life? And I find that I've had to put in rituals for myself, and I share them with clients on how do you separate. You're on your computer all day, you're on Zoom all day. And how do you say, okay, work is over. Now this is time for me, for my family. And then even if you go back on the computer and you're having, a chat with your best friend, or you're watching a movie, the energy, the intention is different. So part of what we talk about when we talk about ritual is intentionality.
Mhm.
So Patricia, feel
Yeah,
free to jump
yeah. So
in.
Barbara, I know that we are in a stage of evolution with, I think, humanity. It's not always comfortable. We're birthing who knows what, but we're certainly in a labor stage, you might say, right? And I think that a lot of people, like you said, feel disconnected. Psychologically, it can be very stressful. It can also be a time of curiosity and of what's next. So how can ritual help individuals feel, more centered, refocused, and reconnected? How does that actually translate into helping us find
Right.
that center when everything around us is so volatile right now and unknown?
Well, the thing that to me I find so interesting, and one of my favorite quotes is, one century's magic is the next century's science.
Mm-hmm.
So now, with
Okay.
epigenetics being so popular, people are realizing that you can inherit emotions from ancestors, which, of course, shamans, priests, wise men, and women have known for thousands of years. That's why we do ancestor rituals. That's why we do different clearing rituals. That's why rituals are done for women who are giving birth, because they did understand that you translate and you inherit emotions, not just the genetic proclivities for diseases. So that's one thing. The other thing is that rituals give us a structure because our mind doesn't know the difference between actually doing a ritual and, quote, real life. So it's read by the mind, by the brain, as there's a clear space, and now we can create new neural pathways. And again, that's something that I'm sure wise men and women have understood for thousands of years, maybe not in that language, but they knew the power. So just think about it. If you do a ritual release of any kind, your body, your mind is reading it, it's gone. Even rituals such as graduations, which we're not seeing very much of anymore in real life, or weddings, which are just starting to come back. You're moving from one state of consciousness to another, and you feel different. I don't care what anybody says. I officiate weddings and a lot of different rituals, and I officiated a wedding for a couple that had lived together for 50 years. Okay, and they finally decided to get married when she turned 70. And she, when it was over, said to me she felt like a bride. She felt like she was 20. She felt totally different. And now this was 3 years ago. And she's constantly emailing me how different their relationship is once they actually did the ritual of marriage. So don't underestimate the power of ritual to literally change your brain, to which then affects your emotions, which affect your actions. So we're then moving into the idea of emotional intelligence, emotional agility. But it really comes down to how can we create very simple rituals. Number one, I have to say self-care is crucial. That's the number one ritual everyone has to be doing right now. Then, how do we create rituals for our family, our friends, our community, our work life, so that we can be in relationship, as you said, we move into this next stage? I mean, everyone on this call, I'm assuming, has a big view and understands what's happening on the planet. The transformative power, the energetic vibration has changed, and we are moving into a whole new time. We have to kind of catch up with the earth right now. The Aboriginal elders did a major ritual on the winter solstice, and their belief was that there were things embedded in the earth, in Uluru, which we used to call Ayers Rock, that were meant to be activated on the winter solstice 2020. And when that happened, the earth would be raised to a fifth dimensional level of consciousness. And then it was up to us, people who live on the earth, to do the same thing, to raise our own vibration. And literally, on practical terms, what that means is to be led by the heart. How can we be led by the heart? How can we be more compassionate, more inclusive, and bring people more connected, as you said, because that's really our journey. And of course, a lot of people are fighting it, as you see. However, a lot of people are jumping in, especially young people. I am like just amazed at how many young clients I have now who really are understanding this, but need the tools to take the next steps.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. It's very inspiring, Barbara, and really well put. And I do want to mention a ritual because it's on my mind, you just shared with Judy and I that you just did a space clearing for one of the first theaters that's opening up in New York to prepare it for theater. Can you tell us about that? This just happened, right? Like
last week. Last week it just
Mm-hmm.
opened. Darrell Roth Theater in New York, if anybody is in the area. They brought a play over from England called Blindness. So it's socially distanced. There are actually no actors, but it's this interactive experience that you have. I have been doing space clearings for companies, for individuals, and for Broadway for probably 15 years. And the idea of it is, just like we get our clothes dirty, our hair dirty, whatever we're thinking, feeling, doing in our space gets locked in there. That is why cultures around the planet all do space clearings and blessings when you move into a new place, always. Or if somebody passes away, or there's a big occasion, or just say a divorce, you always do a space clearing because things get stuck in your environment. So by doing this, and this is someone I have done, I guess, at least 6 or 7 of her Broadway shows over the last 15 years, and a bunch who have won Tonys, which always makes me feel good. The idea is that we look is the wrong word. Since I've been trained to do it, I can feel, and I'm sure some of you watching now have had that experience. You walk in a room and you could feel happy, you could feel something's off. You just energetically are attuned to the vibration. The more empathic you are, the more you feel. So the first state is going literally into the space and opening it up through sound. I have special space clearing bells. I have chants that we do. I use aromatherapy. Since you can't burn things in New York anymore inside, I used to burn copal and sage. I now make aromatherapy sprays. So I have a space clearing spray, and I include everybody who's there. The cast, the ushers, anyone who's working there is involved in this. So I teach them a few little things they could do, and we clear the whole space. Then, which I think is very important, is that we come together and we set intention for what we want it to be. So then they come together as community, and each person, this time I did it with crystals. I gave each person a crystal, and they put their intention for what the production was going to be in the crystal, and then we set up an altar. I had a special box for them, and we set up an altar, which they're keeping in the theater now. So it has everybody's intention in it. But as the producer said, I'll share the article with you because there is an article that just came out today on it. Why she does it is because it brings the community together. I can remember doing the Normal Heart for her, which was years ago, which was about the AIDS crisis, and how important it was to everybody working in the cast and the crew to get that message out to the world. Or one of her other shows, Indecent, which was also another one that was, really important. But, way back when, before pandemic, before I was, quote, out with my spirituality, when I worked in TV, I used to go and clear the studio space because I remember working on talk shows for Telepictures, and we would do it in secret when everyone went home because we didn't want, I didn't care. They didn't want people to think we were nuts. So we would clear the energy of the space, especially if there were guests that were, volatile or crazy. And when I did some training, corporate training in the fashion business, I don't know how many of you know this, but for example, Barney's never ever opened a store without doing a space clearing blessing.
Wow.
Every single store they ever opened always started with a blessing. Again, in secret. I did so many of these things in secret for so many years, and now it's like, now we're Instagramming them live as we do them because people have a different understanding of this.
So Barbara, I love hearing these examples because sometimes you don't realize how much this is already kind of infiltrated and integrated into sort of corporate or even daily society or people's lives. But you mentioned the word intention, and one of the things that came up to me is, a lot of us have routines and things we do every day. What is the difference between a routine and a ritual? How do they differ, and do they differ?
They differ in intentionality. So I could have, say dinner with my family and it becomes a routine, it becomes a habit, versus intentionally making it a family dinner where we're putting our phones away or people are contributing, and I don't care what they're making. You could have a 2-year-old make a placemat with crayons. It's just the intentionality of coming together to create this time. Think of a Japanese tea ceremony. It's very
Mhm.
different than the average person having a cup of tea because the intention behind it is honoring the person you're having tea with. It's very structured, so you can turn a daily occasion into something very meaningful by your intention. So think of even at work, before you started a meeting, if everybody could just take literally a deep breath, just ask everyone to take a breath. And what's your intention for this meeting? It changes the whole focus. Another thing that I'm finding, especially with corporate people, is I no longer ask people, and I think it's a bad question just to say to people, so how are you doing today? Or how's it going? Now I ask, so how stressed are you? Because all the research has shown people are stressed, but they don't necessarily feel comfortable sharing it. But if your ritual now is saying, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, everybody tell me where they are on the scale, it gives people permission
Right.
to actually share how they're feeling, which then
Mhm.
changes the whole meeting. So it's those
Absolutely.
little kinds of things. And, sometimes I'll use like a word cloud. Everyone put a word in, so it shows up visually on how people are feeling. So everybody is doing it differently. But again, taking that time, that's what really makes it a ritual. Even something as might be silly, but this is in my genes. I was walking in Central Park Sunday, and it was beautiful. It was almost 70 in New York, and I was with a friend, two friends, and we were walking over one of the little bridges in New York. We're about to walk over, and I said, "Okay, you all have to bear with me. I can't walk over a bridge without doing a ritual." And they looked at me and they said, "What do you do?" And I said, "I never walk across a bridge without taking a moment to think, what do I want to leave behind on this side of the bridge, so that when I get on the other side, I've moved into a new future." So is it a feeling? Is it a heaviness? Whatever. So again, just those little kinds of things can change how you feel dramatically. And of course, we could do rituals for hours. We could do them with music and chanting and, incense. Think of a Buddhist ritual. Think of a Hindu ritual. We have the new moon coming up this on the 11th, so we can do moon rituals. But again, you can also do them very simply without all the accoutrements if you truly choose to.
Yeah, I know, like, for example, like my husband and I, we're in Naples, Florida, and we often will walk on the beach, but we don't walk on the beach anymore without stopping, grounding, and saying a prayer of gratitude. It's amazing, but I mean, it just completely brings us to the moment and to
Right.
present conscious awareness. And gratitude's a really high vibration, and we just start our day out like that. Or another example like that we're doing is we've got the book You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, and she's got wonderful affirmations in there. Before we go to bed at night, we read each other an affirmation, one of her affirmations. Or
Yeah.
sometimes we'll tap, if you do no tapping, or to clear our energy before we go to sleep, because we're not great sleepers. So we've started doing rituals to help us clear the
Right.
energy of the day for
Which is
sleep.
great. Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, another thing to do before you go to bed is just to write down anything that worries you or concerns you and then
Hmm.
literally rip it up. And again, remember your brain is reading it as gone. Or I always use my shower as a ritual of purification. When
Hmm.
I go, anytime I use water all the time, and we'll end today. I'll show you a quick water ritual. So everyone needs a cup of water or bottle or something. But whenever I take a shower, I literally connect to the energy of water, which, using the elements is the easiest thing to use, I think, to wash away anything I'm holding on to that won't support me that day. If there's any concerns or fears or upsets or anything mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, to just wash it away. And for those of you who have kids or nieces, nephews, around younger people, kids love this ritual. And they love it because they believe it 100%. They're not skeptical. So if you tell them that you take a bath and you put all your fears in and it goes down the drain, guess what? They do it, which
Hmm.
is another ritual we can all do. We're all washing our hands, 25 times a day now. So the next time you wash your hands, I want you to think that you are washing something so precious. Think of it like your great grandmother's teacup that was the only thing you have of your great grandmother brought over from another country. So as you're washing your hands, you're treating yourself as absolutely precious. So it becomes a self-care ritual as well as a physical ritual of getting rid of the dirt or fear of COVID or whatever. And again, it changes your relationship to yourself. And then when you treat yourself as precious, guess what? You make better choices about what you eat, what you do, what you exercise. So these are these tiny little rituals. You know, there's a book called Tiny Habits. I don't know if any of you have read it. It's a
Yeah.
great book because it talks about you don't have to do a lot of things. You could just take one deep breath. You know, it's like when you go to make your tea or your coffee, use that as a time to just take a few deep breaths to ground. I think grounding, Patricia, what you said is crucial right now. So many people are up in their heads right now, spinning. They're not grounded. So to literally, as much as possible, anytime you're outside, to touch trees, because that will ground you physically. Researchers prove that it helps release inflammation out of your body, as well as spiritually it releases a lot. And then to do maybe in your meditation, connecting to the earth and dropping grounding cords, which I'm happy to do before we leave if you want.
That would
Because
be
if you're
great.
not
Thank you.
grounded, you can't be expansive. You can't bring in, right now we're talking about vision, creating a new vision for the planet, creating a vision for ourselves. To bring in the higher frequency, it needs a bigger container that is stable and grounded. Otherwise, you'll bring in all these great ideas and they'll never manifest. It'll be daydreams. So the changing daydream into vision has to do with your container for holding things. And that's why I love groups, because the group container is bigger than the individual. So we can bring in higher frequencies and not have it burn us out. Which again, if you really look at traditional rituals around the world that are in community, that's really what they're doing. They're calling in this higher energy from spirit to come into the physical plane, and they're using the group energy as, a vehicle, a vessel, and then grounding it into the earth. That's why there's always a beginning and an end to any ritual, even if it's a 3-minute ritual. It has to have a beginning and an end. It has to be contained.
I want to share a quick one visual that comes to me about grounding and expansion is a tree. Like we have a lot of banyan trees here, but if you look at a tree, it's solid and expansive, the branches, but it's rooted. So sometimes I'll even hug a tree, but I'll ask its permission first. That might sound weird, but I'll first ask the tree, but I'll lean up against a tree because
Right.
it's such a visual of heaven and earth, bringing those together and integrating those as well. Because I know, one of the things we spoke about is that our mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being, let alone our physical, it's really, these rituals or any ritual can really help us support them. Is that true in our well-being, especially during and after COVID?
Absolutely. And I just want a quick thing about your tree for a minute, because the research I've done, I've discovered if you're leaning your back against the tree so that your spine is connected to the tree, you connect to the electromagnetic pulse of the planet. You literally go down, connect to the roots of the tree, which then are connected to other roots, by the way, because trees are connected. They talk to each other. So it's much stronger than just hugging a tree. And yes, and I always ask permission too. I bless trees all the time.
Yeah,
That's one. There was just a ritual in Judaism. There was a ritual of the birthday of trees. It was only 3-4 weeks ago, and that's one of the things you do is you bless trees. And we're coming up to Earth Day, April 22nd. So that would be a great ritual to do, is really connect to trees. Bless trees, plant trees, anything to do with trees would be wonderful. But I want to say one other thing too, just to let people know how simple things can be to create rituals for like motivation, for example. So one of the things I created, which I love, is my success jar. It's just a simple jar, and I wrote success on it. And anytime I do anything towards achieving a goal, even if it's like a tiny, tiny, tiny step, I put a dime, a nickel, a quarter, a dollar, a euro, whatever in it. And when it's filled, then I take it to those machines, where you can dump all the coins and you get dollars back.
Mm.
And I've also found this is good when you're working in community. So just say we're working on a joint team, and every time anybody is making that one call, doing that one email, reading that one chapter, whatever it is they're doing, we do it as a group, and then everyone shares at the end of the month, uses that money to celebrate. In the old days, we do it in person. Now it might have to be virtual as maybe we could do it in person soon. But things like that are very motivating because you're seeing it. Remember, the more you engage your senses with ritual, the stronger they are. So you see something, touch something, smell something, hear something. It's much stronger.
I love that. And it's sort of like a personal, you engage yourself even more, and it makes you more consciously aware of everything you do. Because sometimes we discount, we didn't even realize how we're moving forward. So it helps to support that journey.
And
Love
it
that.
also empowers you. And I think
Mhm.
that's something, especially with people feeling so disenfranchised right now. A lot of people feel alone. So, unlike just say me, who, still has a million people out there I talk to on Zoom or FaceTime, or I could see people now in person outside in New York. There are people who are really internal. They're not seeing, they're still very quarantined, depending where you live in the world. As we said before, my friends in Paris have a 7 o'clock curfew. My friends in Italy can't really go out. So, depending where you're living, you need to have compassion for where people are. I think that's really important. And to know that these rituals empower you. It's the same as when you're not well, or just say people going through COVID or going through any challenge physically. When you do healing rituals, part of the reason they work is you're taking responsibility for your own healing. You're involved in the process. So it doesn't have to be a big deal, but just that fact alone can boost your immune system. I work with a lot of doctors on this because I have a lot of patients who've gone through it. I do fertility rituals for people, and the doctors have all told me it's the fact of taking control does something different to your cells. It does something different to your physicality as well as your emotionality. So it's not magic, but it could be magical. So it can make a big difference.
There's a, I want to build on that by, I want to read a quote that you sent me in the email by, I love this. There's a psychiatrist and author, Abigail Brenner. She
Mm.
sent me a quote, and it says, the simple act of participating actively in our own lives is a giant step toward taking back personal responsibility for how we choose to live, who we choose to share our experience, and for how we choose to define ourselves in the community and the world. And I think that many of us have felt either powerless or things on the outside controlling us or fear, whatever's going on. I love that. And it speaks to very much, it builds on what you're doing, Barbara. And thank you that we can be proactive, take responsibility, be empowered, engaged, to uplift ourselves and humanity, but also to contribute to the changes going on and our purpose in the world right now, which is very important, with ritual being an integral part of that. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And, one of my favorite quotes is actually, I heard it many years ago, and it said, someone out there needs you.
Hmm.
Live your life so that they can find you. And
I
I
love
love
that.
that because it meant it didn't matter if you touched one person or 100 million people. Your life is worthwhile and you have something to share. So the more we can do this, the better the world is going to be, and the more this vision that we're all, coming together to co-create is going to happen, because we know now this is a conscious world. The world is conscious. It's very new in the scheme of mankind, so to speak, to think that we live in a conscious universe and what we do makes a difference. So we are consciously creating, which, what is it, maybe, 50 years old, this concept that people have really locked into. We think, that everyone understands it, but very few people in history understood what a impact each person could really make. And
Hmm.
it's a new concept in humankind, so to speak, other than the indigenous people who have always understood it. But as far as the average person, it's a new concept. So yes, 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 and yes. Say yes.
Wonderful. Yes. We did have. Thank you, Barbara. So I'm wondering, I'm looking at some of the other things we talked about. Is there anything else you can recommend that people can do now? I don't know if, I know you were going to, I'm looking at our time. I mean, it's 12:35. We still have time, but do you
Okay.
maybe want to do a ritual now that will support the group? Is there anything else you want to share with us in terms of ritual, and maybe something even about your book? I mean, your book is wonderful. I've had it for quite some
Yeah.
time. You've got a lot of the rituals in the book, right? Can you tell us about why that's a resource that people can use?
Well, I wrote the book as kind of a spiritual cookbook
Mm,
because in my research, I realized that people want to, even though basically you all could do rituals without me teaching you, most people don't feel secure and confident that they could do their own. So I wanted to give people some recipes, but then I also like to give real life stories how people did it a little different. So I'm teaching you how to make bread, but Patricia might want gluten free, and Lewis might want rye bread, and Judy might want raisins. So you want to make it your own. And I think that's one thing about a ritual. If you're not doing a traditional ritual, which right now we're not talking about traditional rituals, going to a Catholic mass or having, a bar mitzvah or, something like that. We're talking about almost new rituals that we are creating. Then, we want to use our imagination. But I find that this is a way of giving people some structure.
okay.
So that's what the books are about. And every Wednesday on my Instagram Live, I'm doing the Joy of Ritual, and I'm bringing in different people to talk about different aspects. And then I save the videos on my Instagram. So yesterday we did different sounds and how sound affects you, and using them as rituals, for daily work and life. So I'm fascinating, and I'm constantly wanting to learn new rituals too, because I'm always hearing about new ones, which I absolutely love. And about how can when you even think about rapping, rapping actually comes from an African ritual that when you were angry at somebody, rather than, just go and kill them or beat them up, there would be a ceremony in the village where you would sing out how you felt. So it's through drumming and singing and dancing, and you literally would be saying basically, I hate what you did to me, and you'd be yelling at people, but in the structure of actual music. And then when it was all over, then they literally let it go. And, I'm not saying they shook hands, but they did something to say that we're back again. So that's really where rapping comes from when you think about it. So many cultures around the world have understood that we need rituals for transitions. And
Mhm.
one of my biggest things, and I throw it out to all of you, is we need transitions for our children. There's no real rite of passage anymore. Yes, the traditional ones is more, to me, has become more about a party. When you're confirmed or you're bar mitzvahed or, whatever it is. So when are you an adult in this society? When you get your driver's license, when you have sex? I mean, there's no delineation between childhood and adulthood. We don't do the rites of passage. We don't honor people. And part of the ritual is not only honoring, welcoming them to another part of community, but giving them more responsibility. And that's the part I think that we're lacking right now. So to be able to weave that into our school system, weave that into the youth, because they are going to change the world.
Right.
They're looking for rites of passage, which is why they join gangs, which is why they do a lot of things that we might think of are crazy or stupid as adults, but it gives them a connection, a meaning. So, I mean, we could have this conversation for days and
Right.
hours. I'm sure if I asked everybody, they'd have things they could talk about. But just to really be conscious, I guess that's my biggest thing. How can you consciously set intention for your day with your morning ritual? When you're done with work, how do you separate? So for me, I close my computer when work is done. I literally light a candle, and I just sort of take a deep breath and go, okay, day work is over. And then if I open my computer later, it's a different energy. The same with the TV in my room. I cover it with a cloth before I go to bed. I literally separate out the distractions from my sleep time. So how can you integrate those small little rituals? One client of mine in Hawaii who runs a big corporation, her biggest thing was work-life balance. And I said to her, you know, when you're with your kids, because they're all at home in school and she's working at home, I said, just put in little rituals to be with your kid, 5 minutes to have lunch with them, or, you know, to give each kid 20 minutes a week to just be with you, whatever. And she said it's changed her whole relationship with her family. Just adding these little consistent rituals into her life now, because she tried to only do the big ones, which don't always work. So it's better to do, you have my divided attention for 10 minutes than to try to give you 2 hours one week and not do it again for 3 weeks. So the consistency also makes a difference.
It reminds me, was it Mother Teresa said, it's not about doing big things, but small things with great love. I think that was one of her quotes. I'm paraphrasing, but I think we all need to be seen and heard and felt and met and know that we matter, even if it's a 5 minute increment here and there.
Yeah.
And it's not just about receiving it feels good, but giving it feels wonderful also, because
But
it's
it's
very
both.
reciprocal. Hmm?
Yeah, it has to be reciprocal because a lot of people, especially empathic people that I know, are
Yeah.
way better at giving than receiving.
Mhm.
And
Right.
I just throw this out to all of you that, you know how great you feel when, you do something for someone. But if you don't allow them to do it back to you, guess what? You're cheating them of feeling good. And I
Right.
want you to think of it that way as opposed to, oh, I'm just taking. You're cheating them out of feeling good if you don't accept it. So it needs to be reciprocal.
Very good point, Barbara. Thank you so much. Do you have a ritual? We're going to do a little Q&A, and I don't know, I was going to look at the chat for a minute, but I know before we go into that, just to keep the energy contained here, do you have a ritual or something that you could do for us today about what,
Sure.
the times we're in, or something that we can all bring forth after we hang up from our Zoom call?
So, what I like to do, and you could all do it with me right now. I mean, do you all have some water? Something I would guess almost everybody has water they're drinking. So just have a glass of water, a cup of water, okay? So just everyone just take a few deep breaths and just let your breath go deep into your heart. So as if there's an opening in your heart, in your chest now, just let it soften. Just let your body take in all the air that it needs. And then I want you to hold this water and become aware that this water, this cup or this bottle of water, is a sacred well. Molecules of this water have evaporated, have become clouds, have become rain, have become snow, have then come back into the oceans, the rivers, the lakes. This may be the water your ancestors drank from. This is a sacred well right now. And just close your eyes for a moment. And as we're moving into this Aries new moon, which is the first sign of the zodiac, think of it as a new year, a new beginning. And as you're entering this new time, this new season, think now of anything that you would like to let go of emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually. Think of any patterns you've inherited from your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors. It's your inheritance, but what do you want to claim and what do you want to let go of? Just take a moment. You could go deeper with this later. And now know that you can actually place into this water anything that is not supporting you moving forward, anything that keeps your heart shut. And place your finger in it for a moment to symbolize your willingness to release any patterns that keep your heart closed. And just visualize everything washing away. And now I want you to imagine that you could drop 2 grounding cords from the sole of your feet. They're golden, golden cords. See them going down through all the concrete, the rocks, into Mother Earth like a tree rooting. And in the center of the earth is a beautiful pink tourmaline crystalline energy of Mother Earth, of nurturing, of harmonizing, of supporting. And imagine now that you could just pull up some of this energy through the roots, pulling it up, 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 past your Earth Star chakra, about 12 inches below your feet, into your physical body, your chakra system, and into this water. Transmuting this water now, turning it into positive energy now. And may the purity of source from where the water comes from remind you of the purity and goodness of your own heart. And as the water changes form from cloud to vapor to rain and snow, easily, without resistance, each form expressing its own beauty and purpose, may your journey easily and fluidly change to reflect your ever-evolving self. And now focus your attention on the water and set your intention to charge this water with any specific qualities you want, you need, you require. Health, energy, courage, joy, perseverance, playfulness, health, anything that you need at this moment. Just charge this water. And then lightly tap your third eye between the brows. This is your intuitive knowing, your intuitive self. And mentally repeat these words to yourself. I choose health, I choose joy, I choose playfulness, whatever it is that you desire. Imagine your awareness growing stronger and stronger. And now drink some of this charged water as you ingest these qualities. And then all day today, drink this water and know as you're sipping the water, you're bringing in these qualities. And if you want, you could even put a little of this in another jar because you're charging it. All you need is 1 drop of water to charge another larger one. And there's been many, many instances and scientific experiments done with charging water. So just take a moment with gratitude to yourself, to the earth, to the water, and just feel how different you feel. How much stronger. And then open your eyes. So you could put a little in a bath if you want, or just drink it all day, but you've actually changed the frequency, the molecules, the molecular structure of this water, and now you have a new support.
Thank you, my friend. That's beautiful. It's beautiful.
You're welcome. We want to make them easy.
Absolutely. And powerful and integrated into our lives. So thank you so much for that. That was beautiful. So we have about not too much time, maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes for any questions, or someone wants to share, briefly a ritual that they do. I want to open that up. maybe raise your hand and I'll unmute you if somebody has anything a question or anything they'd like to share at this point. Anyone?
And if anyone has a ritual from your culture that we might not know about too.
Hmm. Anyone?
Feel free to reach out to me when this is over. You might think about it later. You know how you go, oh no, why didn't I ask that question? So just please email me. Just tell me that you were, from Edgewalker, so that it just kind of sparks it for me so I can open it. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have.
Hi, June. June.
I was just going to share, you talked about the value of the wedding ceremony and the marriage ceremony. I just wanted to share that I'm divorced, and it was a beautiful ritual that was done to end the divorce, to end the marriage, which was thank you for all the good times we've had together. I'm sorry for all the times I've hurt you. Goodbye as my husband. Hello as the separated parent of your two children. The measure to which we're friends now, after a lot of difficulty, obviously, around the divorce, I think is the measure to which that ritual actually managed to change the energy. And whereas some of my friends who are divorced are still as angry with their partner as they were in love with them once. I think that there was a huge power, it was done by a social worker, in that ritual. And as you can see, I am a Christian priest, but I would offer that to anyone, because I think if you have this big ceremony to get people in, you need some biggish ceremony to get people out. And that in fact what it did was to change the relationship of husband and wife into that of a separated parent. So I thought I would share that with you.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been doing divorce rituals for years, and sometimes you do it with, if both people are willing, sometimes you do it with children. Sometimes we change the actual wedding ring into a different form so that they might want to pass it down to their child, or literally, I know someone who does sacred jewelry in Vancouver who takes things like your wedding ring and she will make it into something else that has the energy of you moving forward. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, June.
Yeah, that's so important.
Beautiful. I see Liz. Liz, go ahead if you, are you there, Liz? We can't see you.
I see her, but she's muted. Liz Denton?
Yeah.
Yeah, unmute Liz.
I had, and it got muted again. Hello, everyone. I don't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you to Barbara for probably a 20-year experience I had with you.
Wow.
And I'll preface that with saying I'm a early model baby boomer, and I've been a conference and seminar and workshop junkie my whole life. So I've had thousands of experiences like this, and they sort of blur together. But this experience I had, I think 20 years ago, you had planned, and I attended a birthday celebration for Ali Roth.
Oh my God.
You remember?
I do remember. I think it was her 40th or 50th. I don't even remember anymore. Yeah.
I don't remember the exact year, but out of all these experiences I've had that as I said, they sort of blend together. That one has remained so clear in its power, in its creativity, in its simplicity, and yet complexity of how you commemorated every decade of her life, and how you brought each of us, it was a small group at that time, it was all women, of how you brought each of us into contribution of celebrating and commemorating. And it was it remains such a clear and powerful experience that when I saw you were going to be presenting today, I changed my whole schedule just so I could
Wonderful.
hear.
No, thank you.
And
Thank
say
you,
thank
Liz.
you. Thank you for your power and your expertise, and the the thoughtfulness that goes into those kinds of experiences. So thank you very, very much.
Well, I
Wow.
graciously received that. Thank you. And stay in touch, Liz, please. Now I have to go look up the ritual. I'm sure it's on my computer someplace.
It's
Well,
a small
you-
world with these communities, how we all find each other.
I know.
yeah, if you don't find it in your records, you can contact me sometime and I can tell you just from memory.
Okay. So email me so I make sure know how to find you. Sure.
Okay, I will.
So Barbara, someone mentioned what you have behind you. I see Lakshmi and Buddha. You have a few things that I guess that's one of your altars or an altar in your home. I
Yeah,
mean, I do.
I just made a new spring altar. I believe that altars are very important because they elevate your consciousness, and they can be different kinds of altars. Actually, a great altar that I kind of created during this pandemic is it's a too hard altar, meaning that when things feel too hard for you yourself, you write down what they are and you turn it over. So it's sort of like I have a it's too hard altar, for my angels to kind of help me or whatever, you believe in spiritually. But what do I have behind me? I have a Ganesha who I love, Ganesha overcoming all obstacles. I have the painting, yes, is Saraswati actually, done by a 14-year-old girl that I bought in Bali. I have a mandala behind me. I have an amethyst crystal, and then I don't know if you can see this altar. It's just a very fun altar that I made for spring, including Wonder Woman. I have a Hawaiian dancer. I have crystals. I took time to really put my intention, and part of it for me was to just stepping into my power in a different way and also having more fun. So it's half serious and half playful. But the idea of an altar is you need to keep it clean and you need to give it reverence. So it doesn't really matter as long as you do that. And you have to change them every season. So even if you redo them, you want to make sure that you clean it off and redo it because each season has a different energy.
I love that. And I want to share, I don't know if you could see these, but I have prayer beads here. This is one from a lama in Kauai. He gave this to me from his 10 years ago, from his healing table above his table, because he knew I traveled. And then I have 2 prayer beads here. But what I want to share with you is my husband and I travel a lot around, planes, driving, not as much in the pandemic. These are everywhere we go. Everywhere. They're on my altar, they're in the car, they're in the plane. I don't care if we're taking a little road trip. We always do a prayer. We have never, and the word is never, had a problem anywhere. God
Right.
willing. I don't know if it has anything to do with these, but we both
No,
give
it's
them
a
reverence.
traveling altar.
They're
Yeah,
a traveling altar, and they live in my backpack and every place, a hotel room, an airplane. It is unbelievable. They protect us. And the people who made these and gave them to us are in Maui and Kauai said, these will protect you on your journey. So they're a little something we do to guide and protect us in safety and in light and love as we move ahead. So I wanted to share that as well. But
Fabulous.
yeah. So unless anybody else has something, we have like just another minute or so, or anything else, Barbara, that you want to share. I do know you have a wonderful, I sign up for your email newsletters and your blogs. It's all on everything's on your website, right? It's
Yes.
Barbara
BarbaraBiziou.com.
Biziou. It's Biziou, right?
Yeah, Biziou, because
Okay.
people don't know how to spell my name sometime. Yeah, so BarbaraBiziou.com. And yes, I do a weekly newsletter, and I always like to put some kind of either a video or an audio or some kind of a ritual in it. And then I do, it has everything else on it, that's going on, as well as all
people
my
can get your
aromatherapy
books.
sprays and my books.
Oh yeah, you have those wonderful aromatherapy
Yeah.
sprays that we also use. So,
And
but I
right now,
think
my
today-
protection spray is selling off out of the roof because everybody wants it. So
protection. The
I have a
protection.
protection spray. So I mix it with hand sanitizer. So we work on all levels, the physical level and the energetic level. So I just walk around and I put a seal of protection around me wherever I go because, people, some are conscious and some are not.
True. Barbara, I mean, this was so, yes, I see Lewis. Go ahead. I see you have a, something to share. Lewis, I'm trying to
Unmute, Lewis.
unmute. Go ahead, Lewis. We can't hear you.
He's not
Take your
muted.
headphones out. Take your headphones out.
I'm not muted.
Okay, now
Now
we hear
we can
you.
hear you.
Okay, sorry. All of you remind us of how avoiding crises is so wonderful by all these various rituals of positive energy. And yet we also all know that when we have crisis, there's an amazing learning that can come of it. And I'm a lucky one who's just survived in the past few months, not only from COVID, but from being under the ventilator. And one of the learnings I had from the lungs totally having collapsed and having been saved at the last minute from dying was that I spent 3 months before I even had the first breath that did not require a machine. And I'll never forget what that felt like. And then it took 3 more months until just this month, I'm able to go 24/7 without needing a machine, and every minute experiencing breathing. And so when I wake up in the morning and look in the eyes of my wife, and we just go, isn't it incredible miracle that we have, that we're able to breathe and take in 21% of this air, which is the only percent which is oxygen. And from that moment, there's life that gets rebuilt within us to then come back from there and be fully authentic and then do whatever comes from this positive energy. But how silly it seems that it took that for me to go.
Well, I just want to share with you, Lewis. Yesterday on my Instagram Live, I had a sound healer, and one thing that she was sharing is how important it is to be with whatever is going on, not to immediately transmute it. So when we do rituals, you have to honor where you are, and you might want to listen because she gave some really good little sound techniques just to be where you are now.
Exactly.
Honor it. And thank you for bringing that up, because that's my pet peeve with the quote New Age movement is everyone is transmuting before they're feeling. And you have to feel the feelings before you're letting them go. So, and I'm so glad you're well.
It's amazing. Every breath you take.
That is a song.
That's right.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing your story, and I'm so glad you're well and you're an inspiration. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's great to be back. It's also great to be among a group of women. I've spent my 40 years of diversity training where it's all too often true. I'm glad that there was another male in here for a while, but as you all know better than most of us men, just a circle of women brings an entirely different energy, of relational energy. And it's like such a gift that I, as a male, love appreciating when I'm around a group of women. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
So it's just 1 o'clock Eastern time now. We've been on for an hour, so I'm going to wrap things up just to be honoring of our time today. And Barbara, I really want to thank you. I think I may speak for all of us. This was so inspiring and enlightening and supportive and timely. And, I just love you. I can't wait to see you soon when we're up there.
Can't wait to give you a hug in real life.
Yes, I know, in May. So I'm so grateful. And I think we all would just really honor you and your wonderful sharing today. And I will make an announcement that our next Edgewalker Cafe is on Thursday, May 6th, and our another senior Edgewalker associate, Susan, you want to raise your hand there? Susan Furness down there is going to be facilitating the cafe on really about the importance of community. I'm going to take you off mute, Susan, right? You want to say something quickly? Maybe you can unmute yourself just very quickly so we can complete.
Yeah, thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Barbara, Judy, and thank you all. Indeed, as you were just saying, Lewis, I mean, this is a wonderful example of community and common unity. which you really have helped us weave together today, Barbara, with ritual and, the very much of ritual in the now. So just seems to me such a wonderful segue, gateway, opening, that's also very much rooted in who we are, in the collective consciousness of ritual and that grounded, rooted energy to really then step into the conversation around community, common unity, common sense for common purpose and common good. So we'll see how that goes on May the 6th. So please join us then. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And just to remind you all, if you go on the website, edgewalkers.org, you can see what we're doing. Susan, Judy, and I each do a blog a month. You can read the blogs. You could see our upcoming events. You can get the newsletter. So sign up for that as well on edgewalkers.org to stay connected to our group and organization. So namaste, blessings. Barbara, thank you. Judy, Susan, everyone for taking the time today. Be safe and loved and be well. Thank you all. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
I'm going to turn off the recording.